Hello.
Hey, how you doing there, Sean? Hit the play. Hey, welcome to UDTV Live. I really appreciate you coming today and joining the Uncommon Diabetic channel. Our mission is to provide you and our growing community of people living with and impacted by diabetes with the education, training, and mentorship to learn how the 4 pillars of health can transform your life. What are the 4 pillars of health, you ask? Well, uncommon sense is what I call pillar 1. That's our mindset and intention. It's how we think. Uncommon fuel is pillar 2. It's all about hydration and nutrition. Exercise and movement make up pillar 3, which is uncommon performance. And rest and recovery, or uncommon energy, is pillar 4. Every week, we are going to discuss at least one of these pillars, and together we will build the foundations of an uncommon diabetic life. On today's UDTV Live program, we're going to discuss and find the truth about how we can increase our energy, health, and performance, even when we're living with and impacted by diabetes. So to start, I need to say that the content we will discuss today is provided for information and educational purposes only, and is not intended as a substitute for you seeking medical, psychological, or any other professional advice. The content is not necessarily representative of any organizations or institutions affiliated with Uncommon Diabetic Solutions, or myself and our UD team. It is a privilege to introduce Dr. Sean Richardson to you today. Sean and I have known each other for over a decade. He has a PhD in performance psychology and has combined his personal experience with stress, burnout, and overtraining as a former elite athlete, national champion, and Olympic level competitor, and with over 20 years of training and mentoring of professional coaches, athletes, and corporate executives to countless global organizations. His research on burnout and stress recovery balance has led to an intuitive understanding of the mental and physical factors that start and stop us from succeeding. He has been a big part of my personal and professional growth, and has been a friend and a mentor on my journey of transforming my life from a common to uncommon diabetic life. Sean is part of our UD team and will bring his expertise to our UD Foundation's community monthly and helps us learn how to create uncommon energy, health, and performance. So, thanks, Sean, for joining us today. Really excited about the opportunity for you and I to just get together again and talk about how we can really empower people on this diabetic journey to transform their lives from common to uncommon.
Thanks, Heath. Good to be here.
So, as we've talked so many times about energy and my overall health as a diabetic, I can't count how many times we've talked about the importance of creating routines and creating the types of habits that we need to really manage our health and to manage, what type of performance that we're going to get out of our life. So your vast understanding of energy and health and performance in your PhD work has really transformed my life. And I'd really like to ask you specifically, of the 4 pillars which you helped me create, how do the 4 pillars of health actually impact our energy, our health, and performance, even as diabetics?
Well, probably a little bit of background, Heath, just for the listeners, so it makes sense with regard to the 4 pillars and even just the terms energy, health, and performance. As Heath mentioned, my PhD is on overtraining and burnout, and so we're looking at actually what pushes an athlete over the edge to get to that level of overtraining and burnout, and it was really in the context of elite and competitive sport, where there's a lot of science around managing an athlete's health, managing their energy, managing fatigue, because, unlike a lot of areas of life, if your fatigue goes up only a few percentage points, it can be the difference between a gold medal and 10th place. If your energy is a bit off and you're training really hard, it can be the difference between a hard workout and maybe getting an injury. Or, when your energy is low and you're pushing your body and viruses are floating around, your immune system might be a little bit down. And so you get sick right at a time when you're at a peak of performance. So these are the sorts of, that's the background context. And
even as a diabetic, to support you on that, as diabetes specifically, as you've seen me in many of our hikes and different things that we've done in our past, I have to manage all the things you just said, plus where's my sugar at? Did I bring enough food? What is my emotional condition and the stress level that I'm currently living with, and how does that impact?
Well, absolutely, Heath. And I mean, and you know as well as I do that it has a huge impact on all aspects of life. As much as Heath and I have been close, one of my teammates on the Canadian rowing team, Chris Jarvis, who is a World Cup winner and multiple medalist, and he's an Olympian as well. He's got type 1 diabetic. He's a type 1 diabetic, and I lived with him while we were training, and probably never really understood diabetes until really living with someone, seeing, not just the daily, but the moment to moment stressors on the body that he went through. And so, I think this is, that's a little bit more context, but what we really got to see through the research in sport is that, the question that came up was, what are the things that influence us to, originally my question was, what are the things that influence us to make the right decisions, the right responses when you're feeling stressed and low energy? And when, of course, when you put that in a diabetic context, what decisions do you make? What actions do you take when your blood sugars are low, or when you're having when you're having responses in your body that are hard to deal with? Now, and I guess what we've got to see is over time is that there's some real human foundations, diabetic or not, that have some extra tweaks, obviously, for diabetes, but that are important to understand. And these are built into the 4 pillars. And when Heath asks, how do these things have an impact? Well, they all do, and the reason I'm starting with that little bit of background context, because, you can have a lot of knowledge. And so if you look at, sorry about the background noise, if you look at the sports science, athletes had a lot of knowledge. Their teams, they had sports scientists at the elite level, at professional Olympic level. There's a lot of knowledge in terms of the teams around athletes, coaches, doctors, sport physiologists, who are there to help athletes perform at their best. And yet the decisions that were made weren't always the best for that athlete's energy, health, or performance. And the reason was because they weren't looking broad enough. They weren't looking at all aspects of an athlete's life. And this is where it becomes relevant even when you're a non-athlete. So, what is influencing an athlete's decision-making? That has to do with mindset. They certainly were looking at a lot of hydration and nutrition, and certainly, I mean, in the context, exercise and movement, that was fundamentally what they're focused on. But, and rest and recovery is a huge part of the science of elite performance in sport. But in my PhD, what I uncovered is they weren't looking broadly enough across the areas that you needed recovery from. So if you're an athlete, you might be saying, well, the major stressor in my life from which I need recovery is my physical training load. So like when you only look at one category of stress, in this case, physical stress, then you're only thinking that's what I need recovery for. So you get your nutrition, your sleep, and your rest, and other recovery protocols, because there's a vast amount of recovery protocols that you can get into. You look at them in relation only to your physical training load. Yeah. But there's all kinds of other areas of life that demand energy, that we could say stress your system. And we define stress as something that demands energy. We don't think of it as a negative or a positive. It's just something that demands energy. And so
Sean, you're talking about stress, and obviously all the 4 pillars apply to stress. Can you help me and help our viewers understand what are those stressors that are really impacting not just us as diabetics, just us as humans, right? And how the stress is then delivered, or some examples in the 4 pillars.
Look, certainly, if we just go through them in order, you start with mindset, and there's a lot coming from the medical literature. It's probably about at least 4 or 5 decades now, and anyone can look this up certainly on Google. But if you get into more scientific journal articles, you can look up the impact of stress on all disease categories, and diabetes would be in there. So in that it's often considered one of the #1 killers. Like you can Google title, you'll find, you know, popular media articles saying, you know, take stress seriously, stress kills. And so we have this mindset, there's something wrong with stress. It's very negative. It's going to be bad for your health. It's going to kill you. And yes, there's research that shows, decades of research that shows a significant statistical association between stress and death and all other disease, you know, amplifying negative outcomes in diseases. So we're taught from a mindset point of view to fear stress. It's something we have to avoid, fear it. It's a problem. And yet, more recently, even in the medical literature, there's been some acknowledgement that, hang on, not all stress is negative and we shouldn't fear it. So just as the example from sport, we consider exercise a stressor because it challenges your body. In fact, when you lift a weight or go for a run, you create micro trauma or micro tearing at the mitochondrial level in your muscles. So you're actually causing damage even then when you're exercising. But stress in that context is a stimulus. It triggers the body to adapt, and it challenges the body to adapt and get stronger. But the body only adapts and gets stronger maximally when you've got good recovery. So we start to see a little bit of some more nuances here. It's not just stress is bad. It's like stress can be good for you if you get good recovery, because stress challenges the body to adapt and get stronger. So that's knowledge, but it leads to a mindset. I want to finish answering the question. The mindset's really, really key, Heath, because we're bombarded with this story that stress is negative. And I'm going to share one little piece of insight around that mindset. Most people could probably Google Kelly McGonigal. She's a health psychologist. She has a brilliant TED Talk on this concept. She used to teach that stress is bad for you. And she had a bit of an epiphany looking at the medical literature where, you know, some researchers started to look at, hang on, let's not just measure stress and then see people's outcomes. Because, you know, they measure stress at time A, and over 10 or 15 or 20 years, they look at disease rates and death rates. And what they find is, you know, people who had higher stress here then end up with, you know, more disease and death down the path. So that was seen pretty clear. And she said, hang on, why don't we ask people what they think about stress? She didn't say that. She was looking at research that did. And so they measured a group of people where they measured their stress levels, you know, low, medium, high, and then whether they thought stress was bad for their health or whether they thought stress would make them stronger. So that's your mindset. Do you believe that stress can make you stronger, or do you fundamentally, you know, believe that it's bad for your health? And the research showed that, you know, 10, 15, 20 years later, the people, not surprisingly, with the highest stress levels, who thought stress was bad for their health, were the most likely to die. Also have, you know, elevated, you know, numbers in all those disease categories.
Agreed. You know,
now you just hang on.
Yeah.
You need the clutch here, mate. You need the clutch. Is that you might expect that the people who had a positive belief about stress would be the next category, but no, they were the most protected. They were the least likely to die, the least likely to have amplified diseases or disease categories. So even lower than those people with low stress in their lives. So that's kind of like, hang on, belief about stress suddenly becomes a risk factor. So mindset is extremely powerful. Now, of course, mindset leads to behavior. So maybe those people who had a positive belief about stress also responded to stress better. But there's some really interesting research around, everyone knows the placebo effect, but not a lot of people know the nocebo effect. So placebo is, I take a sugar pill in a study and I expect it to make me feel better, and it makes me feel better because of that positive expectation. It turns out if someone tells you that you're taking a real drug, it has negative side effects, you will actually, if you have negative expectations, it'll make you worse and you'll get symptoms like, even, you know, cancer patients taking chemo drugs in a study, half of them are on a sugar pill for the effect, you know, testing that cancer drug, and they actually manifest symptoms of chemo, even though they're taking a sugar pill. So that's called the nocebo. It's like the negative expectation effect. So we're just, there you go. It's mindset is absolutely crucial.
You know, Sean, I'm grateful for your explanation, and the detail is so powerful you provide. in my mind, what's going on right now is we talk about transformation. We're trying to change these common issues and responses that you talked about that are happening in our lives as diabetics all the time. And we're wanting to transform from these common responses to uncommon ones. Well, stress is a big part of transformation. It's our willingness, or what was for me, and as we've talked over the years, that how do I embrace this in a way that's going to take potential and create beliefs and meanings that are, as you just said, positive, that are going to have an impact, that will create an action, right? Because our beliefs drive emotion, our emotion drives motion, or the actions that we take in life, right? That potential, that action gives us a result. From that result, we build confidence or it reduces our confidence. But in most cases, when we take action, we get a positive response from it, such as going to the workout, as you've said. It hurts like heck, but you go back again. You start to see some growth. Our confidence grows. And then what happens? Our potential grows. Our ability to understand that we can make this change. And the relationship that you're talking about with stress, I think, is a really critical one within our 4 pillars. That's the reason why it's pillar 1. Is our thinking, our relationship with transformation, with change, to embrace it. And I'm grateful that, what you shared about stress and the impact it has, it's not all negative. Let's look at what's good about it and what we're growing and what we're learning so that we can move forward and create this transformation cycle, right? That when we go, now we're aware and we can respond to it.
I just want to acknowledge that comment you made. It's not just that it's not all negative. It's that stress is not the focus. It's your response to it that matters. So, what makes stress negative or positive in most cases is your response to it. So, that's why it starts with a mindset, and then obviously it gets into actions as you're talking about. But your response, you really want to feel more empowered about how you respond. And when we say stress is quite a general term to the challenges in your life. Now, of course, there's some stressors and challenges which you could say are pretty typically negative. So like, smoking a cigarette is a stressor to your health and your physiology. There's not really anything positive about that. Drinking copious amounts of alcohol. So we can introduce certain toxins and stressors. And now we sort of, get more onto when we talk about alcohol, we talk about the nutrition and diet side of things as well. But it's acknowledging, yes, those aren't particularly, there are some classes of stressors which are probably always negative, but for the most part, when we think of challenges to the system, they're helpful. So like, I just want to create a distinction that I'm not all black and white. It's not like all stress can suddenly make you stronger, but a lot of it can. And we want to really get that it's how you respond. And look, if you have a bit of alcohol in your life and that's your thing, in a very moderate level, you don't never think that it's something that's going to make you healthier, but you certainly can respond in other parts of your life and making yourself super healthy so it doesn't do as much damage.
Well said. So I really think it's in everything. It's about balance, right? And how we create these habits and these routines that are driving things. So just to conclude on mindset, and it's a great segue into pillar 2 and the health side of it, and our nutrition is such a big part of diabetes, but how can stress positively impact our energy and our health as a whole in that way, which results in performance increase? So can you give some really tangible things that people can take away and go, hey, what can I use this in a positive way for?
Well, I mean, look, I think I can tell you about the mindset of stress is good for your health. And you really, the reason why we teach material, we teach the science in your program, it's not just one podcast that necessarily shifts a mind, is because, you want to create a mindset, you've really got to buy in, and which means building your knowledge base. And so it's one key tip is start doing a little bit of study yourself. Get onto UDTV, like learn about what Heath has to say. Follow some of the stuff that I say on LinkedIn, whatever it is. Just do some Google searching around stress being positive, your health, healthy stress responses, because you got it in a way from a mindset point of view. It's not just because I said one thing, but rather you engaged in understanding that, this is real and it has an impact. and then, build the conviction in yourself. So to strengthen your mindset, it's about learning. It's about going out there and building your knowledge base, whether it's through reaching out to people like us or doing some of your own research. Build your knowledge base about the positive aspects of your stress, and it's really in your stress response. I think, yes, if you have the mindset, what's going to help is that you put some things in place. So, some simple things are try it out. Like, if stress makes me stronger because of my response, the key response that we see very clearly at a physical level is recovery. So how do I get, if I have a big day at work, or if I have a very challenging day where my whole body has been challenged either physically or mentally or emotionally, then, what am I doing during that day to fuel? Because recovery is about fuel. So the nutrition, what am I doing to move, to get my body, my blood flow moving? Because that's part of recovery as well. What am I doing to rest? And what am I doing to recharge my energy? And so recovery is where you get stronger. You want to be able to act on that mindset, because when you act on that mindset, you're going to get the result where you're going to feel better in a few days. You're going to build some strength. You're going to build fitness. You'll build some resilience in response to that stress. When you repeat that cycle of stress recovery over time, and then that will reinforce the mindset as well. So it's not just having a mindset, it's getting in action is what will reinforce it.
Well, I really like that. So that leads us to our second question, actually, and that's really about action. It's about routines, right? So as we're talking about the 4 pillars, and we're really going to sort of focusing on pillar 1, our mindset around routines, since that's kind of where our conversation's led today. To go into all 4 pillars, it's not like, as you said, it's not one and done. This is a journey to transform one's life, their habits and routines. I liked how we've talked many, many times, and Tony Robbins used to say all the time, repetition is the mother of all skill. And really, that knowledge that you're just talking about is what really starts to create the skill. That knowledge that, hey, if I go to bed earlier and wake up earlier, right, and get into a regular pattern, my body's going to respond a certain way. So this I'm using as a simple example of a routine. But what would you say is a routine around our mindset and rest and recovery? Let's just focus on those 2 bookends, pillar 1 and pillar 4. We're going to assume that people are fueling their body for today's discussion, that they're eating well, and that they are being active on hiking, walking, lifting weights, rowing, whatever your passion is, be out there moving your body. But what routine would you think would be the best for helping remove, or better not remove, reduce stress and turn it from that overwhelm feeling or burnout feeling to recover back, so that tomorrow I'm willing to get back on the horse again? Because, when I go, and you've seen me overtrain, and do something, you always say, hey, Heath, you don't stop, right? It's an active rest day today, or it's whatever. Could you expand on that and the routines that could really help people, and especially those with diabetes?
Well, look, I think the first thing is just acknowledging, if we're talking about a routine, and we just talked about the mindset that stress can make me stronger. There's lots of mindsets, right? So like that's one starting helpful mindset. If you want a mindset to become your dominant mindset, you got to repeat it. So part of your morning routine is waking up and reflecting on what's important to you. Like we often in our program, we talk about capturing your sense of purpose, writing down 10 things that are important to you and then looking at them every day. They might be something you stick up on your bathroom mirror, and in there might be that mindset around my response to stress. And it starts with that mindset of stress can make me stronger if I get the right recovery. And you write that down and you say, why do I want to do this? I want to do this because, I want to have a better life. I want to, be able to run around with my kids. I want to stay active. I want to stay healthy. You write down your list of reasons why. You write down your values, your things that are important to your mindsets, and you put them somewhere you can see them every day. It might be, in your phone, in your notes section, and you put it in your calendar. So it gives you a little reminder. That's what I do every day. And I look at it and repeat it. So don't just think repetition is for movement like sports skills. Repetition works for how you think. Yes. So, one routine is start your day with the right thinking and make it easy for yourself. Have reminders like I say, bathroom mirror or fridge, places where you see something every day and you're like, yes. And you start your day in, reinforcing that mindset. So that's probably, one of the key things around just repetition of mindset. And, you know, like I would say then when it comes to the next thing, which is really repetition, what matters around rest and recovery is that and it is one of the mindsets, and I'll share another one with you, is having a mindset that small amounts of daily recovery are sometimes, or you could say even more important than the one-off or once a week big recovery. So a lot of people work hard all week long. They work hard in their jobs, they're there for their families, and they don't have a recovery mindset during the week. They just think, I'll get to Sunday afternoon in a few hours, I'll sort of flop down and hope I'll, you know, have a few bites to eat and a good night's sleep and be ready for the next week. And, you know, that's not, we want a daily cumulative recovery mindset, which is small bits of recovery, you know, every day actually add up to more, and a more beneficial, well-timed recovery is more beneficial than, you know, a bigger period of recovery later, you know, delayed recovery, either later in the day or later in the week. And so if I could, you know, I want to, there's sort of an interesting piece. I want to just share an image on this, because just to kind of reinforce how important this is in our current day, you know, screen, work from home, back-to-back meeting on Zooms or on Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's interesting because I'm going to share my screen here, and hopefully everyone can see this. But this is actually an image I took from an article. It was posted by Microsoft, and Microsoft did their own internal research where they started to notice with the COVID environment and everyone, you know, shifting to having video conference meetings back to back to back, that people seem to be getting more tired and less productive. And so they thought they'd run it, and clearly they heard a little bit about the rest and recovery stuff, and they thought they'd run a little experiment internally with their own teams. And they compared groups that continued to go on that rhythm of back-to-back meetings with no break to groups that took micro breaks, like a 5-minute break between meetings through the course of a day. And they put EEG caps, so like these things that read your brainwave activity, and they measured beta wave activity. And that's a measure of stress. And you can see from this diagram that those who had no breaks, they have shown by, you know, their stress levels were elevated and stayed elevated through the day. So the oranges and reds throughout the day, whereas those who took micro breaks, even just a little 5-minute break between meetings to turn the brain off, to chill out, that's where you get a little bit of, you can grab a bit of hydration, a healthy snack. You might just close your eyes for a few minutes. You might pop some, you know, nice music on for a few minutes. When you take micro breaks, your brain resets and stays in those cool colors, which is non-stressful. You stay way more productive, you get way more stuff done, and you end the day with less fatigue. So, you know, and this is all backing up to answering the second question, which is one of the key routines that we teach people is to build in micro breaks, you know, through your, whether it's Zooms or team meetings or even live in-person meetings. You want to have real breaks. And if you're doing like a 3-hour strategic meeting with your team at work, make sure you've got at least 2 breaks. You want to break at least every hour, but those micro breaks are more well-timed. Micro breaks are more important than having, you know, if you have, say, 4 or 5 micro breaks, so that adds up to 20 to 25 minutes of breaks throughout your day. That's more valuable than taking, you know, 45 minutes or an hour off at the end of the day. You've already exhausted yourself. That hour isn't as useful as the internal break. So you want to get into this routine of scheduling these micro breaks throughout your day as a key form of managing your energy and your stress on a daily basis. You still want to get your you know, some downtime on the weekend, get some extra recovery. You want to get good sleep. You want to get nutrition and hydration, but you really want to get a mindset and then an action around first valuing and then taking action on these micro breaks.
You know, Sean, that's brilliant work, and I love the science behind it, right? Because a lot of my routines come from this, our work, and other things that I've learned over time. And you know, I'm an early bird, so I'm usually up at 5 to 6 o'clock. As a diabetic, having a regular schedule really makes your life much easier, right? Because you get into a pattern when you eat, when you're gonna hydrate, when you're taking your blood tests, your different aspects, and that's irrelevant of who you are. The morning is the best time to really set those mindsets, those intentions in place. And I do have those rituals and routines in my life. Every morning I wake up and I do my reading, I do some studying, I put good stuff in. You know, all of our parents taught us when we were young, garbage in, garbage out, right? So you're putting in that good stuff in the morning to really set yourself up and prime yourself for that day, whether it's at the office or it's a day with the family, whatever it is, you're giving yourself the best chance of success. From there, then you're moving into some movement, some exercise. You're obviously having to hydrate, or depending on whether you're an intermittent faster or you're a 5 time a day eater and routines, you implement those in these small chunks throughout the day. But the biggest stress relief, I have to admit, is the micro break. Me putting a micro break in, even if it's just a minute of deep breathing every hour, where I set it up on my iPhone, it comes up and I just do a minute. I can't believe the physical impact it has on my psychology, on my actual heart rate, on whatever you're dealing with, whether it be, you know, no joking, joking aside, but you know, the notifications that are going off, the different things that we're doing in our life, there's always stress. But that micro break is immensely positive to us. So I can only share that. And then the other is moving our body, right? The old adage, you know, in the military is drop and give me 20. Well, there's a reason for it. It's a shift. It's an immediate and a physical response that does a state change for you, physically, mentally, emotionally. And in some cases, it even changes the environment, and other stresses will dissipate because of that physical routine or action that we put into place. So this really is just kind of summarizing from my actual application of the stuff that I've learned with you, from you, and other mentors of mine in my diabetic life. By implementing these routines and repeating them, I start to see the responses, and then it's a never-ending tweak until you find that happy place that gives you that energy and gets you the health response as a diabetic, the sugar balancing that we're looking for, etc. So using all the 4 pillars in these different routines is really an important part. And something that you've really instilled in me is making sure that I'm hydrating regularly, right? And that's it's something that we've not done enough in our overall dieting of people today. But whatever your need is, I'm speaking to you, the viewers, right now, look at it and realize that these 4 pillars are like chunks. They're like rocks that we can use to help set these little routines up through the day, whether it be hourly, once a day, twice a day, that we can address, that will deal with our overall health and help relieve stress and help move us forward in higher energy and better performance in our days, right? So I guess, Sean, in the conclusion side of it, what I heard you say is that we need to build routines that are going to help us build the foundations to our mental health, which then leads into all the other 4 pillars, so that we can transform our life, right? Without these routines, what are the chances of us really making a transformation?
Well, look, I mean, you know, I think the word routine is just another way of saying repetition, and you know, it is the way that our brain learns. So, you know, I think it's that common sense approach that seems so that we all understand. And but the you know, routine in my world, sometimes I use the word ritual rather than routine. It doesn't really matter what you use, but it's understanding that you're doing something regardless of whether you feel like it or not, whether at that moment you think it's going to help you or not. You just trust that the repetition of it is going to make the difference, because one practice of a routine, or even 3 or 4, or even maybe a whole week, might not make that much of a difference straight away. Sometimes it will. That's a nice bonus. You get going, and you change a few things, and you get into some routines, and you're a week in and you start to notice changes already. That's amazing. But the concept here is to trust the science and to start practicing these rituals, or what, if you want to call them, routines, regardless initially of outcomes, and just do them. And then it's repeated over time is what gives you the outcome. I think that, you know, there's no magical cures to anything in life, but this is sort of going back to in a way, if I want to could leave you with a mindset around this, we tend to think of, you know, hard work is the way that we're going to get anywhere and to achieve our biggest goals in life. And there's no doubt that hard work is really critical. But here we want to think of, you know, putting some of that effort or hard work into recovery. So it's like, you know, we usually have that mindset of, oh, taking a bit of time for myself, giving myself maybe even a day off or an afternoon off, or even a 5-minute micro break seems like a bit of a guilty pleasure or a luxury that I don't have time for in a busy world. And we want to flip that around and say, actually, recovery is as much our responsibility to achieve our goals as the hard work. So, you know, in our program, we often say, work hard, recover harder. So, you know, like as much as anything, the mindsets, the routines, they all work together through repetition to change your life.
Sean, such powerful word. You know, what came into my head immediately as soon as you said that, recover harder, was, can we afford, you know, all the time people are saying, well, I can't afford to take a micro break. You can't afford not to take that micro break. And, you know, I also really, in conclusion of this, think that the lesson from today in our discussion is, you know, routines that are repeated actually become rituals. They become the things that we automatically do through that repetition. And from that, that's where the results or the transformation comes from. And another day, I know we'll get into the whole continuum in depth and share more about how we move from stress to high performance and work through this over time. But I think it's really important that people today just take away that create routines that allow you to have the results that you desire, but don't forget to take time to recover from it so that you have the energy to continue moving forward in your transformation process from common issues that are going on and transforming those into uncommon results in your day-to-day life. So I really want to thank you, Sean, today for your valuable input. It's always such a great time. And
my pleasure.
Any closing remarks, or where can people find you?
Look, you can find me on LinkedIn, Dr. Sean Richardson. I'm on LinkedIn. We've got our website at energyhealthinc.com. So you can find out more about some of the programs we run. We are integrated with Heath at UD as well. So we're very much working together. And but yeah, say hello on LinkedIn. I always reply to messages if you want to shoot me anything on there, and or you can follow us up on our website. We have contact forms there as well.
Well, thanks again, Sean. I really want to put out a call to action to everybody that, you know, take advantage. Come and check us out at uncommondiabetic.com and take advantage of our free Uncommon offers. We've got several of them there available to you. One is our Uncommon Diabetic Transform Workshop, where we dig deep into the 4 pillars, how to create these routines that Sean and I were talking about, and really transform your life into that uncommon diabetic life that allows you to live the way you want to live and do the things you want to do. Or also take advantage of our UD Challenge. That's 30 days of certified training over 12 weeks. And you get to do all kinds of assessments and really create a map for where you want to go physically, mentally, and emotionally, and how to really transform your life again. So, you know, those are just 2 of our 4 offers that are up there for you. What I'd really like to do as well is just say, guys, never stop focusing on what we think about, because the power of our thoughts really drives the emotions and the way we feel in life. And from that place, it directs our actions. So today, do something uncommon. Embrace a routine. Try something new that's going to actually help you get to where you want to go. So again, I thank you for coming and watching us on UDTV Live. Check us out at uncommondiabetic.com or the Uncommon Diabetic channel on YouTube. And I really look forward to seeing you next week and as we continue our journey at transforming. So, Sean, thank you so much, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks for being part of our community.